minutes or so. Welcome, everybody. We're back. Number 5 today. This will be my 5th interview of the day, and I'm here with Jeevan from OpenSpace. Man, okay. Now, I know some companies have used OpenSpace, and I've heard about the product, but I have yet to sit down with you about it. And my first question is, why in the hell would you want to be in construction in the first place? This is a crazy business.
Yeah. Well, I would say there's a few reasons. There's got to be at least more than one. Otherwise, why would you do that?
That's true. That is true. There's got to be more than one.
Yeah. So, real quick, I'll answer that question and add a little background. We started OpenSpace around 8 years ago. Second technology company I started. First one went, well enough. We sold that one. And at the company that acquired us, we started serving builders with a product called SiteScan. This was a drone, flies over a job site, and pictures of 1,000 words, shows you what's there. So I had, started to understand the industry. So the reason why in the hell we're doing this is I guess there's a few reasons. Number one, this is corny as hell, but I feel the pain, dude, of trying to get something built is so tough, and, I had to do it in miniature. Our first company is we were manufacturing stuff. It's so much easier to manufacture a physical thing than to build a building. Yeah. But it's very similar, man. The whole fog of war, what the hell is going on the site? For us, what's the same? What's going on in the factory?
Right.
In a way, it was, again, easier, it's more repeatable. But imagine if your job site's 6,000 miles away. That's what it's like. And you'd get these phone calls with the people on the site and these knockdown, drag out battles that are jeopardizing your whole company. And then
every day is a new fire.
Totally. And then when you're actually physically there and you can just see what's going on, you're like, oh, that was the issue? Solve it in 15 seconds. So I feel the pain. That's,
Yeah, the pain is real.
That's number one.
The struggle is real.
Yeah. That's it. And then I think the second is, if you can move the needle for builders, there's a huge part of the economy, right? So, it's not like a small side project. If you do something that actually matters, you can really not just make people's lives better, but you can make a big dent and have a big profitable company.
Yeah. Was it 14% GDP or something like that? Yeah.
Totally.
That's no small measure.
Yeah. So, and I think the third thing is we just, my co-founders and I, from a technology point of view, we studied AI and spatial AI, computer vision. I've always liked trying to build things that work in real physical reality. And we got some background starting companies and PhDs and that kind of stuff in this space. And so I think we just noticed that there was this kind of moment that started happening pretty recently where you could change how way of people built, because visual data become much more easy to get and access. And that, to me, is the coin of the realm for trying to make a good decision. Most of the time, you need to know what's actually going on the site. And no amount of reports and documents can do that. And so we're like, hey, we have an opportunity to kind of really move the needle in this industry where we feel the pain.
I think it's funny. So I'm a spatial type person.
Yeah.
So I'm one of those people. If I go to a job site, I can look at the set of 2D prints and I can go over there and I go, okay, that's going to go there, that's going to go there.
Yeah.
I can see it come together.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't do that.
Yeah.
Right? And they can't, kind of see behind the wall.
Right.
They can't see how that fits together.
Yeah.
A lot of folks can't do that. So I definitely see the ability. I just see how you, being that kind of spatial person, understand how does that put together, in a virtual world, but also how does it correlate to the real world. I can see how that really makes a lot of sense for you.
Yeah, totally. And it's just that way of thinking is actually the only way things get built correctly. People that don't have that natural skill set or desire, that's not good for the industry.
Yeah, it's not going to happen for them.
Yeah, yeah. In a way, we've sort of, have forced people in the industry to work more along the lines of what documents require. Mm-hmm. It's you have to write it down. This report, all this stuff. And it's that is actually a pretty poor representation, generally speaking, of what's actually going on. Mm-hmm. And the reason I think we've kind of made people do that is just for a long time, that's all computers could really understand, is like Word documents and spreadsheets and stuff like that. And so I think we kind of created this mess for builders to execute their projects. I think there's an opportunity to to use new technology to make it more like the old way of just like seeing what's there, interpreting it, making decisions and moving on.
I think it overcomes some language barriers as well. So something about you, like you said, pictures worth 1,000 words or 10,000 words, a million words, whatever it is. But who's saying those words? How they get delivered? Who they get delivered to? That's a huge deal, especially when you start talking about digitizing this information, and you start talking about wanting to measure the digitized information. It has to be verifiable in some digital way, right? It has to be structured language, right? I think that's the point that a lot of folks are missing about this whole thing. There's a lot of pushback is, well, we don't need it for daily reports, or we don't need it for this, that, and the other. It's like, well, you kind of do. And here's why. And I'm talking, and I don't care if it's a CYA situation, right? You may need it for that. But you probably need it more for the things that you're not thinking about. Like you missed X amount of scope of work because somebody took off early.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. Forgot to write it down, or forgot, those types of things. But you capture it in a picture, you've got it.
It's just the truth, man.
You
can't argue with it. And it allows people to make, like I say, one of our open space models is better decisions faster. We just want to allow people to make it more likely to make a good decision and do it more quickly. And you kind of say, with reporting, there is a garbage in, garbage out problem too. If people are like, okay, I gotta here's what I did. And it's like, okay, they may not, it's the last thing people want to do at the end of the day, And then is it actually accurate? Maybe not. And then you're trying to make reasons. And then you're in the office, or you're the way up to the C-suite of these companies, and you don't know what's going on, And it's not any one person is trying to warp the information. I mean, maybe they are. But they don't even have to be wanting to, for it to get all crazy by the time you're trying to make these big decisions. But if it's all backed by field reality, it's just simplified.
I wrote an article one time called "% Complete is like your biggest lie."
Yeah.
I think it's my most viral article of any of them, because everybody knows that half of what you read, is just absolute myth. Coming from those types of things.
Right.
Just so you folks know, you got to stop trying to measure everything with money. You just because you spent $50,000 doesn't mean you got $50,000 worth of work done. But if you got a picture, you're gonna know what you got done, what's really behind the wall, what's really going up next, where you really are along the process. One of my big things over the time is being able to measure productivity. I believe that is the maneuver that construction needs to be able to make so that it can actually kind of get into a predictability model. Right. So OpenSpace, I've seen it before. Does it have, kind of productivity capture in it?
Yeah, basically. In a way, we have and productivity is kind of a numerator denominator, is like what you did and what you spent to do it, right? And so we have what you did. So to explain this a little bit further, base layer of OpenSpace, people call it a visual intelligence platform. That's pretty accurate. It's not too complicated way of describing it. Visual data is good. We organize it and allow people to make decisions off of it, either within OpenSpace or through integrations with other tools they may have purchased. So it involves visual information. It comes from 360 cameras and now drones, mobile phones. We take a lot of pictures on mobile phones, and we find the location of that automatically. We can pull meaning out of all of it. So we like to say if it's happening on the site, it's in OpenSpace. Like that's one of our goals. We can take all that reality information and, as you say, pull out higher level kind of conclusions. Is the zone actually going at pace, or is it behind? Based on, is it this trade or that trade? We can do a really detailed breakdown of everything that's going on. And this progress tracking system that we call OpenSpace Track, we don't have very creative names, call things what they are. It is something where it's very flexible. because every project is a unique flower. You know what I mean? They're all different. So we can customize the tracking system to that job and to that company. You can track kind of anything, and it's got a human verification too. So you have like expert people in the background that are making sure all the results are good. So with that, we can tell you what's actually happening in the high level insights. Then, you can pull in data on like actual labor that you brought to bear on this job site, and it's just a division problem. So short answer is yeah. I mean, we can give you productivity data, and you can't argue with it.
So, and that's the thing. I've been, pounding this gavel for years. I look at it when I owned my own company. I was trying to figure out ways. How can I monitor true productivity, not progress? There is progress, but it has nothing to do with productivity. Right. It's like, how can I measure true productivity? And if I'm going to take this back to the estimating team and say, I need to figure out, how many buckets of paint we can paint a day, or how much drywall we can hang in a day, those kind of things. It's like, how I know I'm getting feedback information back that's accurate. And so then when I started working in kind of the software side of the world, kind of out of the ownership kind of the world, because the ownership world, you're wearing so many hats, you don't even have time to focus on that stuff, even though you're thinking about it. Yeah. And I think this is what a lot of executives run into, is they think these thoughts. They're like, why can't I just have this? Yeah. And then they have to wait because they got all these other 50,000 other things on their plate. And then they have to wait for, somebody to think of it the way maybe they think of it, or come up with a product that says, oh yeah, you want to see that in a dashboard, you want to see that number. We can extrapolate, go from here to here. Mm-hmm. For me, that's solutions engineering. That's somebody thinking about the process and going, who else needs to know this? Yeah. And I think that's the biggest disconnect that we have a lot of times, is like, people don't think these things are out there. Right. They don't even know they exist.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's true. And I think that is something that is, I don't say it's unique to construction, but it kind of plagues construction in the sense that it's just, I'm not breaking any news here. It's chronically understaffed, basically, and overworked, So, and that sort of shows up in these kind of like McKinsey-esque consulting numbers, like the amount of time that a builder is spending like exploring and trying out new things is pretty small relative to other industries. And I get it. It makes sense if you think about how stretched thin the industry is for a variety of factors.
Well, I think I look at it as kind of the triangle of business, right? Where you've got at the bottom of this, very large industry, 70% of it is mid-market to small market contractors who, God knows, they don't have any time to, think about training on anything or buying any kind of new software. Their margins are stretched thin. They're undercapitalized. Their cash flow is shot.
Right.
But yet, we've just talked about, what is it, 14% of GDP, supported by, 70% of these folks that, started their own thing, and, out there hoofing it they're working hard every day. Yeah. And they have very, very little time. One, not only for bullshit, but they have very little time for, things that count sometimes.
Yeah. And I think it's just incumbent upon anybody who wants to move the needle for the industry, whether that's through technology or policy or whatever, to make it incredibly easy to understand and very easy to try and see the value quickly. Like it's not, you can't get mad at your customer for being like unwilling to try out your solution if it requires too much brain power. That's just the way it is. And so I kind of think about this in a couple of ways. Like there's this whole idea, of course, of ROI, return on investment, on whatever, right? And if you think about that equation in kind of a simple way, you think, well, if my return is more than my investment, great. Spend $100K and get $120K return, then I made $20K. Wonderful. But that actually kind of misses the point for a lot of people, but for builders too, is that the investment, not from money, but almost time and attention span, it's so scarce that the things that really work, they have a positive ROI, not just because the delta between return and investment is positive. So they take the investment term of something and they bring it down close to nothing. Where it used to be so hard to do this thing, and then it's much easier. The technology, generally speaking, the really things that truly take off, that's kind of what they do. They don't have to have this elaborate presentation they make to the customer. They're like, hey, look, there's this thing you're kind of supposed to do, and now it's like 100 times easier. And so OpenSpace, we try to have a psychotic focus on that. Like, it's something people kind of have to do that is sort of painful, make it so easy that they're like, this is cool. And then they find all this value in it. And then you don't have to be a giant builder, like with a giant innovation budget. You could become anybody and you can be like, this thing is cool. It's saving me time. And then if you can get into that mode, you get a flywheel.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's just something you gotta strive for.
Time is not soft cost, but time outside of work is soft cost.
Yeah.
And I early on in my career, it was a heavy investment guy was talking to me as well. I can't really measure, I just need to measure the hard cost here. And I was like, okay, but at the end of the day, right? And I think this is what happens to scale. When you're smaller, the soft costs actually cost more a lot of times than the hard costs. It's the stuff that you find difficult to measure and maybe can't measure, but it's eating at you. It's like the death of 1,000 cuts. Right. But and the hard cost is just very obvious. Right. And so it's so different at a different scale because, like you were saying, they don't have a large R&D firm just sitting there, cranking out new ideas and testing this out and testing that out and see what sticks to the wall. Right. It's totally different. But that 70%, that large portion of the market is sitting there going, they're getting eaten up by Dave's spreadsheet over here that I can't see, but Bill just got a hold of it. And now he's jacked it up and I have no idea, what's going on there. And then the pictures you took don't look like the pictures that you took. Even if they're, using their cell phone, you texted it to me at 3:00 in the morning. Right. That kind of thing.
Right. And then there's like, where is that? There's little pieces that are very critical. Like, where was that?
Right. Timestamp, dated information.
Yeah.
There's a big one.
I mean, that's why we focus a lot on location because I was talking about superintendents like, if I don't know where something happened, I might as well not know it at all. Which is totally true.
That's right.
There's a column. Great. Cool. Where is it? All right. It's like, so.
Could have been on somebody else's.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, cool column, dude.
I actually had that happen before.
Yeah.
By the way, we were working on a job site. We were 2 job sites side by side, wasn't our job site.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened, but the person was like, "Oh, I took a picture of this thing. This is messed up, right?"
Yeah.
Sends it to you. I was like, where was it? Well, it was over here on this whatever. I said, which address?
Yeah.
Oh, is this address? Well, that wasn't supposed to be done on that one over there.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
Context is everything.
Context, like getting this information out there. I've got, so this is when we were first getting OpenSpace off the ground. Now, so we kind of knew builders. I had, superintendents, PMs that I knew. So we kind of made ourselves interns on these projects. We were not very good interns, but we were out there and trying out the technology and just kind of being a fly on the wall. And I can remember this one meeting, man, it was like, assistant superintendents, a couple PEs. And they were the point of the meeting was, okay, this is a general contractor meeting. Trade damage, we need to go through all this potential trade damage, figure out who should backcharge, who we shouldn't, blah, blah, blah. So this poor PE had gone on and made this PowerPoint with all these photos of like, here's some bird holes here and blah, blah, blah. And they're trying to figure out, well, who's responsible, right? And there's this photo. Dude, it was so bad. There's this photo of these little holes that were kind of punched in the drywall. And then the superintendent's like, okay, all right, well, so I guess where was this? PE is like, I don't know, don't remember.
It's somewhere around here.
Yeah. And then the superintendent, God bless him, was like, well, judging by the shadow in this photo, probably was on the eastern side of the building. Therefore, and it was like, God, this is crazy. This is like insane Sherlock Holmes stuff being done for a simple question. But just had the location, like, okay, that's in, unit 603 yesterday. Like, Bob's drywall was in there, probably was them. I'll give him a call. Done in 5 seconds. So that context is super important. But you're talking about the 70% of the industry, and And they're kind of leaving hand to mouth, you know? And I will tell you one thing that I'm excited about that I think we could, hopefully see. And we're trying to pursue at OpenSpace is one of the reasons why that happens, of course, is that you're buying materials and labor and stuff, and then you don't get paid for a really long time, you know? And that cash flow, that's like a uniquely gnarly thing about construction that other industries don't have. Like their difference between receivables and getting paid is much, their payables and receivables is much closer.
56 days.
Yeah, totally. And if you have a business that's like a more normal business, then you can invest in stuff because you know what I mean?
Well, you can count on the check getting there.
Yeah.
I mean, 56 days is the average. I always looked at it this way. Whenever I put in a pay request or whatever, that kind of thing, I put in a pay request. If I didn't hear back on that pay request within 3 days, I started to get nervous because I'd always have to follow up because it'd be like, everything okay with the pay request? Because, there's the game, there's the shuffle that happens. GC didn't get paid. He's not, and he doesn't necessarily have budget in there for you just yet. So he's kind of putting it off, and maybe he says, well, I think that's misbuilt. Send it back. And so now it sits back on your desk, and you don't jump back into the same space in the line that you were. You jump to the back of the line. And it's a shuffle game.
A shuffle game, and it's like a Russian doll because you have trades here. Sometimes there are sub trades. There's a GC. Sometimes the GC's got the owners. The owner has got their own LPs. And so one thing I would love to do, we're starting to experiment this now, is one of the reasons why there's that crazy cascade of taking forever to get paid is that no one's totally sure the work was done, And you can have this fog of war where you can be like, well, look at the SOV in this invoice. Well, and so we're like, okay, well, OpenSpace can step in and try to help. Say, okay, look, you can't argue with that, especially with OpenSpace Track. Everything was done, and how it ties to percent complete, however SOVs are structured, and it's almost like all that data plus the insights are like virtually stapled to the recs.
Right.
So you don't need to, if you are the person paying.
Yeah, it's a bit of an insurance policy.
Yes, you don't need to wait. You don't need to fear that you're getting overbilled or something.
Right.
Because it's all there. The facts, the truth, the images are all there. And so what I want to do, not me personally, well, it'd be great, but with the movement I'd like to help out with is essentially get the net terms shorter. Like if you get a rec and you have all this data that tells you it's done. And if you really don't believe it, you click a button and you can see, then really you should be able to get closer to net zero.
That's true.
There's no reason not to.
The cash flow is king, right? If everybody knows they're going to get paid, right? If there's confidence in that system, right? Any economy will tell you this. If there's confidence in the monetary, the currency flowing, you're going to get more productivity. You're going to have a smoother run. It seems common sense, but for some reason we haven't practiced this.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of reasons why construction. And it didn't always used to be this way if you're like a historian, but like it really has super fragmented, and then there's so much waste just in how money gets from point A to point F. And so I don't know. I think if we can smoosh that back together.
Contractually, I think there are tools out there that folks are starting to work with now in the contract language that becomes less arbitrational and litigation and more collaborative, which I think is definitely a move that needs to be made.
I agree. It's like I've kind of, you almost could measure the change by like percent projects that are IPD or something, which is still very niche as far as I understand. But I think you could start to see that grow if there's just more trust amongst all the parties that come together to build something.
Then we would say too that if we're going to grow trust, we have to grow the tools that provide
the data, the trust but verify thing needs to be. That's how you get there. And so I think when I think about this visual data, in a way, you could think about it in a small way. Oh, it's kind of nice to have around, useful,
and you can always refer back to it.
We have a pretty expansive view, though. Like we think it can really just make the industry like structurally better. And we won't do it on our own. It'll take time. But I do think this type of information, this type of data can unwind a lot of the things that make the industry so tough.
Very good. Well, 25 minutes goes by so quickly.
Yeah, it does.
We just, chatting, two guys talking,
Yeah.
and I really do appreciate you spending some time with me today.
Yeah, my pleasure. It was fun.
Yeah, I try to get everybody on camera saying it so they'll come back to the contact exec, and we'll do the full version.
Yeah.
I call it the Texas drive time version.
Yeah.
45 minutes to 50 minutes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But I'd love to have you back on the program, get into more stuff. You started to talk about data, and when we start talking about data and pictures, with size,
Yeah.
lots of data, what's usable, what's not. So maybe we can get into that at another time.
Well, our customers collected a lot of data, like 65 billion square feet of imagery so far. It's growing fast. So it's exciting.
Yeah, I bet you know a thing or two about it.
Yeah. Well, maybe half a thing at least.
All right. Well, that is it. That's my fifth interview right here from ENR FutureTech. Thanks, Jeevan. I appreciate you, man. I really do.
Yeah.
And until next time, folks, we're going to have to go on the full podcast.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right. Later on, everyone.